Developers, do you want to customize Webflow with your own tools, automations, and integrations? You're in the right place. In this video, I'll show you how to build a Webflow app, a single-page application that runs seamlessly inside the Webflow Designer. With apps, you can automate design workflows and integrate external tools right from the Webflow canvas. Today, we're going to build a production-ready Webflow app and get it up and running inside our Webflow workspace. You'll also learn key tips for making single-page applications work well inside of Webflow. I'm Andrew from the Developer Platform team. I help build the apps people use every day on Webflow. I'm going to show you the tips and tricks I use to build great Webflow apps. Everything you need to follow along, example code and documentation, is linked below. You can build alongside me or just grab the repo and explore on your own. Now, let's get to the code. Today, we're going to take a designer extension. We're going to build it all the way from local development to bundling it so you can submit your app to the Webflow Apps Marketplace. I'm going to start completely from scratch, and as I walk through it, I'm going to hit different areas that you may hit where you find difficulty in your app building process. So first things first, let's create a directory. I'm going to call my app my wonderful app. I'm going to change into it, and I'm going to create a to-do file so I can keep track of the different steps that we're going to walk through. Let's go ahead and open it. I'm using Cursor as my editor of choice, but you can use whatever you are comfortable with. So let's go into my to-do file. We're going to call this from local dev to bundling for production. So I'm going to call this step 0, or the prerequisites to get ready to build your Webflow app. Step 0. So I have some notes over here of what we need to do to make sure that we can start developing our app. So we're going to need a Webflow site, and we're going to need a app template just to get the development environment set up. We need to install that app template into a Webflow site. And then if you want to get more detail, you can go to these different links that I have here in our docs. I'm going to run through it really quickly just to get the minimal infrastructure up so we can start developing. But I have our registering of app here, and then I have how to install the Webflow CLI, which is the additional requirement that you will need. So let's run through that really quickly. I'm going to first create my Webflow site. I'm going to call it app demo. Easy enough. Done. Okay, I need to generate an app template. So I'm going to actually open up a new tab where I'm going to have my Webflow dashboard out. So I'm going to go to my dashboard. And then once I'm in my dashboard, you can see I have my Webflow site here, but I need to create an app template. So I'm going to go into Apps Integrations, Develop. Then I'm going to go into Create an App. From here, I'm just entering in dummy data just so I can get set up. So I'm going to call it my wonderful app. This is a very detailed description. I'm going to skip the app icon. I'm going to put a place filler for my app homepage, www.webflow.com. And because I'm going to be using this in other videos, I'm going to go ahead and restrict app installation to a specific site. It's not as pertinent to this video, but in later videos, we'll see why. I'm going to hit continue, and I'm going to make a designer extension and a data client. For now, you really only need to have a designer extension, but we're going to be building off this repo in following videos. I'm going to go ahead and enter a dummy redirect URI here, call localhost 3000 auth, and go ahead and create the app. Great. So I got my app template. Now I need to install the template on an actual Webflow site. So if in the Apps Integrations Develop page, I can go to these 3 dots and I can hit install. And I'm going to select the site that I want to install it on. Now when I authorize, I'm going to go to that dummy redirect and nothing will happen. But what I've accomplished is inside of my Webflow site, if I hit refresh and I launch the apps from the side panel here, you can see I now have my wonderful app. And when I hit launch development app, I'm getting this empty iframe. Great, so I've gotten to a place where I can start developing on my designer extension. And again, we have more detailed videos on how to go about this, and I've referenced them here. But we've gotten to that minimal place where we can go into a Webflow site, we can launch this iframe, we can start developing against it. Great. So for our next step, we just want to create an app that we can render in that iframe. So create an app to develop locally. So if we look at our Webflow docs, they expect, or the app is expected to have a certain structure. So let me go and open up the Webflow apps. And if I go to Designer API and I go to app structure, you can see that there's expectations on what we're going to have in our app. We need to have a index.ts, a index.html file, index.js. And if you're looking at this and it jumps out that a SPA or a single page application works best for this, you're right. So we want to take a SPA, so let's say create SPA to develop locally. So we want to have a bundle that includes all these things, and we're going to put an SPA in it. Now you can use various different frameworks to build an SPA, but one of my favorite is actually called TanStack. So if we go to TanStack, they have what's called TanStack Router. So now every SPA, when you build it, it typically comes with a router, and TanStack has their own TanStack router. It's a fully type-safe router. It works really, really well, and I'm a big fan of it. Again, you can use whatever SPA framework you want to use, but we're going to go ahead and use TanStack here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to go to the quick start, and it looks like they have a scaffolding command here, but I want to use certain technologies. I want to use PNPM, I want to use Tailwind, so I'm going to go and look through the config options here. Great, and this has what I want. It has PNPM, Tailwind. Again, these are optional. This is just what I want to use for this app. So let's go ahead and drop these links in here for later. And we need to run the scaffold to build a SPA. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and copy this. We're going to run this, but really quickly, I just want to change my app to Designer Extension. Great, and it's building out all the things that we need in our TanStack Router app. Again, this has nothing to do with Webflow right now. This is just TanStack and creating an SPA. So if we look into our files here, we can see it's using Vite, we're using TypeScript, we have an index.html, and it's going to be looking at the main file to render React on this. So if we go into main, you can see that is what is happening here. Now, you'll have to look through the TanStack router documentation for these different configs, but know that we're just creating a SPA. Now, how does routing work in TanStack? They use file-based routing, which is really great. I think it's really ergonomic because all you have to do is create a file in the route directory, and it allows you to have a separate page that you can route to. So we're going to do that really quickly. If I go to routes, I'm going to go ahead and create an about file, about.tsx, and let me grab what is in my index route and just go from there. I'm going to rename some stuff. I want to call this the about. And then you can see I'm getting some errors here, and that's because in TanStack I need to run PNPM run dev. First, I need to change directory into my designer extension, then run PNPM run dev. Great. Now you can see I have a React app up, and if I add a link, which is TanStack Router's way of routing in between pages, see I'm importing the link, I can route to the about page. Let me add some styles just so we can see it. Oh, 2 class names. And I need to put this in the index page to route to the about page. Great, and you can see here, I can go to my about page if I insert the link correctly. Here we go, 3rd time's the charm. So now I'm on my about page. So if we go back to my to-do file, we've created an SPA, but it's running on a page in the browser. We want it to run inside of this iframe. So how do we do that? So if we look at the Webflow docs, you can see that they have a certain port that they serve the iframe that the iframe expects to be served on. So if we go to getting started, and if you see right in here running your designer extension locally, this will serve the designer extension on port 1337 or the delete port. So when I ran pm run dev, you can see it ran on localhost 3000. So we need to change the local port to 1337. So how do we change it to port 1337? There's a couple ways you can do it, but when I'm using Vite, my preferred way is to go into the Vite config. So if I look here, I'm getting some errors. I'm going to figure those out in a second, but what you need to do is add the server port 1337. Looks like some stuff is deprecated. Since we're using cursor, let's let that figure out what I need to update. However, I believe it is still running. So let's go ahead and run pm run dev. And you can see it's running on localhost 3000 still. And if I'm remembering correctly, I believe we passed a flag in the package.json. So we just need to delete these really quickly. Great. Let's restart our server again. Great, we have it on localhost 1337. Now, when we go in here and we refresh the page, we can see we now have our SPA from TanStack router inside of this iframe. Great. So we've got port, we've changed the local port to 1337. Great. Now, when you're in a Webflow Designer extension, you have access to all these great Webflow APIs that can do a bunch of cool things inside of the designer. And this is great when you're building your app. And for the sake of this video, let's choose something really simple. So we're going to look at utilities, site information, and get site information. It's a really simple call, webflow.getSiteInfo. So we want to use the Webflow Designer API. And then let's go back to the get site info. And let's just go to my index page and try to run that get site info. So I'm going to say const get site info equals Webflow .get site info. Great. So starting to get some errors. It looks like we have could not find name Webflow. That looks like a TypeScript error. But let me just, for now, ignore TypeScript and see if it will even work. So I'm going to go back to my Webflow site. You can see I'm getting this Webflow is not defined. So we need to do two things here. Let me go back to my to-do. So we need to enable Webflow APIs in development, and we need to get the Webflow API types. So we actually have a community member who's created a wonderful plugin for Vite. So if I go over here, and I'm just looking for the link, here it is. So we got the Atom team has created a Webflow app hot reload. Atom Webflow reload Vite plugin. So if we go to this link again, you can see you need to do two things to start using it. You will need to install it, and then you need to add it into your Vite config. So let's go ahead and install it. Great, and then we're going to need to add it in our Vite config. Let's go to the Vite config and get rid of this for now, and you will need to add import. Great, and we put it right in the plugins part. And because this is bothering me, I'm going to try to figure this out. I believe we just need to install the node types. Install or pm install the at types. Okay. There we go. So we just need to install the node types, and now we got rid of all those errors. But what we wanted to work on here was, again, just adding this Webflow hot reload directly into our beat config. And then let's run pm run dev again. Okay, so I'm getting an error here. Let's go ahead and read it. Failed to load config, no such file, open webflow.json. So what is a webflow.json? Looks like I need to add a webflow.json. So let's go back into the Webflow docs and see if we can find the webflow.json. So search for webflow.json. Oh, let's go maybe app structure over here. App settings. Okay, here we are. Webflow.json. So this webflow.json sets some settings for your app, and you can have various configs here. But just for the sake of getting running quickly, I'm going to go ahead and just copy this one from right here. And I'm going to add it to the root of TanStack Router app. So in my designer extension, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it webflow.json. Great. And then I'm going to paste. For the time being, I'm going to delete these app connections and app intents just so we have a blank webflow.json. So if I go back to my to-do. Okay. So let's run pm run dev. Okay, so it looks like we didn't have any errors, but let's go ahead and open our Webflow site. Great, it looks like we have our TanStack router SPA working, but let's see if the Webflow APIs are working. Let's go back to that index page and let's see if it's working. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh it. And I am on the index page, correct? Let me go ahead and reopen it. And a very obvious mistake here, I am not logging it. So here we go. Let's see if this works now. Great, I'm getting a promise. So it's working, but the types aren't right, and I'm not getting the types into my app. How do I go about that? So we need to install the Webflow Designer Extension types. So if we go to this npm package directory page, we can see we need to install the types, and then we're going to need to adjust rts config.json. So again, I'm using pm. So I'm going to install it with pm, and we've got the types, and then you can change the type roots here. Though I've found with the Vite setup, it actually works better to just adjust the actual types config that we have here. I'm just going to add the additional Webflow / designer extension typings. Okay, great. Now let's go to our index page and see if we get those types. Great. Now I'm getting the types, which is awesome. So I can get great autocomplete. I can make sure that my TypeScript can check my back and make sure nothing's going to break before I build it. So as you can see, I have autocomplete here, and I have all the different methods that I could possibly want to use. And because I know this is a promise, let's go ahead and run it in a use effect. So use effect, let's await this, can't spell await, and this is going to need to be in a function, async function that we call in the use effect. I love autocomplete, and get rid of this. Okay, so now if we go into our site and we rerun it, I need to run pm run dev first. Pm run dev. You can see I'm getting the site info here, so I'm able to use the Webflow APIs inside of my app. Great. So I have knocked out all of these. Enable the Webflow APIs with the Atom hot reload, added the Webflow.json, and I got the Webflow types in there. Great. Now, let's say we've built our app how we want it. We've used all the Webflow APIs that we could possibly use, and we're ready to bundle and submit it. How do we do that? So let's go to bundle and submit our app. So if we go into the dashboard, if I go into my apps and integrations and I see develop, I can see this is my wonderful app that I've been working on. Now, if I go to publish extension version, you can see there's a place where I can upload the zip file. Okay, bundle my extension by running Webflow extension bundle. Okay, so I need to bundle the extension by running Webflow extension bundle. Great. Let's go ahead and try that. Just run Webflow extension bundle. Okay, so we've bundled our extension. We should have the bundle zip in here, but it looks like we're getting an error. So let's see, could not find index.html in your public dir. Okay, so what does that mean? If you were paying attention at the webflow.json, when I pasted it in, you could see that there was a public dir option. So what is this saying? This is saying, if we go to app settings, public dir, we're seeing determines the directory to build and serve the app from when bundling your designer extensions. Okay, so the Webflow CLI is expecting us to have a dist folder based on this config with our app in it. And if we look, we don't have a dist folder in here. And generally when using TypeScript, you compile or you transpile then compile your app by running build. So I have a build here and it's running vite build in TSC. Great. So in our TypeScript config, we want to tell it to put it in the dist folder. So let me go back to my to-do, adjust my TS config to have a build in a dist folder. Great. So let me open up my TS config. And I need an outdir, which we're going to name dist, and we need to tell it where to start, and we're going to call it the root dir. Excuse me, in the root dir, we're going to tell it to look in source. So it's going to go to source, look for the main.tsx, it's going to build it, and then it's going to put it in dist. And when we run pm run build, that's exactly what's going to happen. So pm run build. You can see now we have that dist folder. Great. And when building, you're generally also bundling. So let's combine that command that we had before, and we're going to run Webflow extension bundle. And just to keep things clean, let's remove the bundle.zip that we had before. Great. So this command is going to remove the previous bundle.zip. It's going to build and with vite and TypeScript and then bundle. So let's run it again. So when we run pm run build, we're going to get a whole new bundle file. Well, it looks like we're getting some TypeScript errors. So ts config, what did I forget here? Match by include pattern. And I always throw my error messages in the chat. It's one of my favorite parts of cursor, so add the chat. What is wrong with this ts config? Okay, I just needed to confine it to my source. Great, thank you cursor for the assist, accept file, and then now let's run pm run build. And again, this ran this build command, and it looks like I got my bundle.zip. So I've adjusted it to be in my dist folder, and I've bundled the extension. Great. Now, at this point, I think it's worth taking a beat and actually looking at this bundle.zip. So I'm going to reveal in my Finder, and I'm going to open it up. So you can see I have the files here. So we have a index.html, we have our assets, and it looks like the JavaScript was put in different chunks, but we have different JS files and we have a CSS file. Again, if we go to our app settings, app structure, you can see this is similar to what we expect. If we want to just have it in one JS file, we can go into our vite config and we can change the auto code splitting to false, and this will give us just one JS file. So let's run pm run build again, and let's go ahead and open up this bundle. If I look at it now, we have that same expectation that the Webflow app structure is expecting. So we got our index.js, we got our CSS, we got our index.html. Great. Looks like we are doing wonderful. So now we want to test our bundle. How do we do that? So if we go back to our dashboard here, we have the option for publishing for internal testing only. This helps prevent the classic "it works on my machine" issue. So this will be representative of the same environment that the Webflow app that will be on the App Store has. So we go in here and we can publish for internal testing only. So this allows us to test our app in an environment that is very similar to what's going to be submitted to the App Store. So let's upload the zip file. And if I go to Designer Extension, bundle.zip, open, let's make a comment called whip and let's upload it. So let's refresh the page here. And instead of launching the development app, let's launch the app. This launches the bundle that we submitted for local testing. So we launched it, and what's going on here? So let's do some inspecting. If we look at this app, we can see that the app itself never got anything rendered in it. It's almost as if the JavaScript that renders in main.tsx never ran. So looks like we didn't get the root element by the ID app. So what's going on here? Want to test our bundle, get the JS to render React correctly. So if I jump back into the Webflow documentation, you can see there's this concept of pass. So we want to avoid absolute pass, so that's something that's starting with the slash, and use the relative pass. So let me go look at my bundle. If I look inside my bundle and I look at my index.html, looks like we're doing exactly what we shouldn't be doing. We've got relative pass, we have absolute pass here and we need relative pass. So let's go to our to-do, set up in our build. Correct. Okay, so how do we do that? So we can do that with a Vite config. Let me pull up the correct documentation here. So you can tell Vite to have a base path. So it's as simple as a one-liner config change. And all we have to do is go to the Vite config and add the base path and then add a /. Okay, great. Let's build our app again. So pnpm run build. Again, this is building and bundling. And then we're going to go ahead and look at this output, reveal in Finder. This is my old one. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So let me look at what my index.html looks like. Wrong index.html. I want to be in my bundle folder. Great. So we have avoided absolute pass and we set up the path structure for the build correctly. Okay, let's test again the bundle. So pnpm run build. We're going to publish an extension version. We're going to upload that zip file, which is the bundle.zip that we just created. Throw another whip in there. Up, and then refresh the page. So again, we want to launch our app, not launch for development, or not launch the development app. We want to launch the app. And we can see, if I highlight it, we got something different. Still not good, but different. It says not found. So what is happening here? If we inspect it, we can see that it looks like the JavaScript is properly, or the React is properly rendering on this root element. It's just saying not found. So if we think of the way SPAs work, they tend to take a path and then use that path as the file that it's supposed to be routed to, much like in the TanStack router file-based routing. So why do I mention that? When we look at the app and where it's served from, I'm going to copy this link. We can see that we actually do have a path here and it's saying not found. So what exactly is happening? We are having a fake route in here. Our JavaScript thinks that inside of our route, it's expecting a file with the name 6849, et cetera, 703. We don't have that. So we need to set up the correct base path in our router. So let me find the documentation for TanStack, and it's a simple config within the main file, but I'm going to go ahead and grab the link here, base path property. And again, whatever router you're using most likely has their own routing logic, but this is a common one that uses file-based routing. So we need to make sure the base path is set up, and other frameworks will help you do that too. So just search for the base path. Okay, then if we look at the docs, we need to add this to our router options. So the router is created, and this is TanStack specific. The router is created in the main.tsx file. So we need to add a base path, but we need to get this path here. So we need to basically tell our router that, hey, every single file is going to start with this, and this will be the base path. So I have a little snippet of code that'll help us do that really quickly. So again, this just makes sure that we are getting the correct base path for our router. Okay, so let's try building it again and see what happens. Actually, first, just to show you it's working, we'll run pm run dev. And the code snippet that I gave you should work both in dev and when you build it. So let's go back to our app. And let's launch the dev development app. It's working there. Let's go ahead and build it. Let's publish the extension version. Let's do whip, upload zip file, bundle.zip, upload. Let's go back to our Webflow site. We will refresh the page. And again, we want to launch the app to test it. Great, now our build is working. So let's go back to our to-do. We've tested our bundle, and we've done that by making sure that we're avoiding absolute pass and that we have the pass structure set up correctly in Vite and also in whatever router that we're using for our SPA. Great. So we have gone all the way from local development and getting a React app with a router on it all the way to a bundle. And we've done that through various steps, which the summary is we have creating SPA locally, we've used the Webflow Designers APIs too, and then we've gone through all the different issues that you might run into when bundling. And I will make sure I have this code up here so everyone can look at it. All right, we covered a lot of ground today. You just set up a fully functional Webflow app optimized for local development, and you uploaded it to your workspace to test it live in Webflow. If you follow along, you're now ready to start building your own custom workflows using the Webflow Designer APIs. This allows you to build apps that can programmatically add new elements and components to the page, create new classes and variables, upload and manage assets, and that's just the beginning. To dive deeper, check out our developer docs for a full list of what you can do inside the designer. Or get inspired. Take a look at some of our favorite apps in the Webflow Marketplace to see how others are building. If you have any questions, drop a comment below or start a conversation in our developer forums. And tell us, what other dev-focused videos do you want to see? We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching and happy building.